Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the end of an era. Earlier last week, LEGO announced that it was discontinuing its LEGO Dimensions line. Thus, along with Disney Infinity's cancellation and Skylanders' sort of cancellation, the final pillar that was supporting the Toys to Life genre has fallen. Toys to Life, a genre of video games where a video game was connected to a toy through an electronic connection, was all the rage just 6 short years ago. Now, while there were toys that basically did the same thing for a long time, Rob the Robot comes to mind, the genre truly hit prominence with Activision's release of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. While retro Spyro fans sneered at the use of the character, Skylanders led with a truly ingenious marketing approach, inciting curiosity with displays that urged you to put one of the colorful figures onto the portal to see what happened. The concept of a game that could identify a toy just by being put on a pedestal was revolutionary and held a ton of wow factor with the way it was used to advertise. People could buy 1 or 2 characters that they liked, mull things over for a bit, maybe play in the online game using a special code included with each character, before finally splurging to buy the full game. And what a game it was! Spanning over 32 levels, Skylanders was a huge adventure to save the world from the Invader Zim-inspired villain named Chaos.
Fear it! Fear my giant floating head!
It was kinda modeled after MOBA games, which were still fairly new at the time, with a huge variety of characters that have wildly different playstyles, only in an adventure game made with kid appeal in mind. The Skylanders not only acted as playable characters, but also unlocked new content in the form of elemental gates and heroic challenges, as well as providing extra lives to clear a level with. Some characters could also manage special terrain, such as water characters who could swim, flying characters who could avoid ground-based obstacles, and earth characters who could dig through rocks. Each character could also be leveled up and upgraded to make them stronger. And all of it was wrapped in the premise of the Portal of Power, which suggested that maybe you're not just putting a toy on a pedestal, but you're instead sending the Skylanders home. A year later, we got the sequel, Skylanders Giants. As a sequel, Skylanders Giants kept the trend of the original game going. It had improved graphics, better level design, and of course the Giants. Super-sized, super powerful Skylanders who can clear special challenges and solve some puzzles in unique ways. And best of all, if you had been diligent in collecting the Skylanders from the first game, you could unlock everything the game had to offer with just the Portal Owners Pack. This made the game feel a bit more like an expansion than a full sequel, but that felt player-friendly in how it rewarded collectors. However, that's when the problems began. Activision, the publishers behind Skylanders, didn't seem to like the fact that you didn't really need to buy much more in order to enjoy everything Giants had to offer. Which brings us to our first sign of trouble, Swap Force. Swap Force was a Skylanders game designed more to sell as many toys as possible, even more so than the first game. In this game, there were special, see also expensive, Skylanders who could be split in half to combine with other Skylanders to make multi-elemental Swap Force characters, each of which also had a special movement type that unlocked another new set of elemental gates. They also crammed in a ton of new features, from the poorly implemented Portal Master rank, to the addition of a jump button, to the intense cranking up of the saturation setting. They also massively increased the resolution on the character models, making them look even more plasticky. Some of these changes were fine, the jump button felt natural enough, but Portal Master rank was egregious in how much it paywalled. In order to increase your Portal Master rank and thus access new content, you had to gather stars, which could be cleared by beating levels, but a lot of them were also tied to buying and owning basically every Skylanders character, or at least all of the Swap Force members, and all 32 of the original Skylanders. And sadly, the game wasn't more fun as a result. I remember explicitly stating this during my playthrough of the first level. The levels were made extremely long, often taking an hour or more on their first playthrough, and were filled with tedious mini-games, many of which were tied to the Swap Force characters and their various movement types, which you would have to play at least one more time in order to get the stars that count towards your Portal Master rank.
Blast and Furious!
So, yeah, despite all this, Swap Force was still fairly popular, but not as much as Giants had been. Fortunately, this was also the year that the first major competitor appeared. Now, there had been some attempts to imitate Skylanders before this, such as Hasbro's Beambox and another smaller plug-and-play game that featured the Ninja Turtles and the Justice League, but the nature of the technology meant that only really big entertainment brands could get into it, and the first was Disney. Disney Infinity 1.0 actually gave the Toys to Life genre a shot in the arm by providing a fun alternative with tons of popular Disney characters with high-quality figurines. Rather than individual levels in a long story, Infinity was essentially packed with 3 separate sandbox-style games, which you could get more of with the special level packs, which allowed you to unlock components for use in the level creator, which lets you make your very own Disney World. It wasn't perfect. There was a bug that lets you unlock basically everything, and the starter set by itself wasn't able to support co-op play. But people went wild for it. Disney made a diverse and entertaining alternative to Skylanders, and it really worked, which allowed both of them to move strong into the next year. Around this time, Nintendo also threw their M-labeled plumber's hat into the ring with Amiibo.
Amiibo!
Rather than being tied to a single game, Amiibos were meant to not only be attractive Nintendo-themed collectibles, but to also be a gift that keeps on giving by dropping small perks when scanned into compatible games, such as character skins, bonus items, or other rewards. Now, this was slightly botched in America with a highly restricted release, a lesson that Nintendo of America still didn't learn until the NES Classic, and Animal Crossing proved to be a weak follow-up to the Smash Bros. Line, but I can't deny that Amiibo did gangbusters upon release. But sadly, the trouble that started simmering in Swap Force would boil over the next year. Now, as far as gameplay is concerned, Trap Team is overall a massive improvement over Swap Force. Levels were short and sweet, gameplay was engaging, Portal Master rank was fixed, and the trap mechanic, where one small item unlocked several new playable characters, was ingenious and rewarding. I even enjoyed the tower defense and rhythm minigames. But the problems with Trap Team did far more damage than the ones in Swap Force. First of all, the elemental gates, which could be opened by any character in the first 2 games and nearly anybody in the 3rd game, could now only be opened by the special, see also expensive, Trap Master characters, making everybody's previous collections completely pointless, the total opposite of what Giants had done. And then there was the logistical nightmare of the traps. If you wanted any trap other than water, you were frequently out of luck, especially if you wanted the new light or dark traps, same with the light and dark level packs. And Disney Infinity also showed some problems. Rather than the whimsical variety they got in the original Infinity, Disney instead focused on the Marvel Universe. Well, what parts of the Marvel Universe they had access to, leaving out important Marvel characters such as the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Deadpool, as well as giving characters expansive ability trees in an effort to be more like Skylanders. So, yeah, as Skylanders was driving over the cliff, Disney Infinity decided it would be the perfect time to jump into the back seat. And if Trap Team is where Skylanders jumped off, Superchargers is where they crashed. Not only did Superchargers again render your entire older collection obsolete, but now every character essentially came in 2 parts that were sold separately, with the vehicle and their driver.
Supercharged.
The vehicle portions of the game ate up so much development space that it had just 12 levels, a far cry from the original, and such a huge emphasis on the vehicle action that it barely felt like a Skylanders game anymore. I mean, the 12 levels were downright inspired, but they felt like a small part of the game with its new emphasis on competitive online multiplayer, which you only got half of. The rest was paywalled behind level packs, which were kind of pointless because nobody else had access to it unless they also bought the level packs. As for Disney Infinity, after 2.0's less than amazing results, 3.0 launched with a Star Wars theme. This, sadly, led to even less level variety, and most of the people who went and bought the figures pretty much only bought them because they liked how the Star Wars characters looked. Needless to say, it didn't pull in the numbers Disney expected, and it wound up being their last Infinity game. The high-profile failure of Playmation, a second Toys to Life experience that Disney heaped on for some reason, certainly didn't help. This was also the time that LEGO Dimensions jumped in, with a greater plethora of licenses making an effort to capture that variety that the first Infinity game had. Results were mixed. The game and figures were more expensive, but in some cases it was the only way to get some certain LEGO pieces. The game got sort of a sequel in the form of a second wave of level and character packs, but nothing as solid as a second release before finally bowing out this year. Honestly, the writing was actually already sort of on the wall by the time Dimensions came out. And thus, last year, the genre's last major release was put out by its origins unopposed with Skylanders Imaginators. In some ways, Imaginators tried to restore some trust by returning the Skylanders to single-character purchases, many of which were fan favorites from Trap Team, as well as finally making Chaos a true playable character.
Behold my catchphrase of doom!
And finally, the Creation Crystals, meant to be the successor to the highly versatile Traps, where players could make their own Skylander from scratch. But then came the rub. Activision made some of their worst decisions of the series. On top of again making your older collection worthless, not only did they lock Creation Crystals to make them impossible to reset unless through a bug exploit, but they added loot chests and microtransactions in a game that already sold extra components on its own. And it is with this game that the Toys to Life genre has whimpered to a close, just like the Guitar Hero games before them. A promising genre that had 3 really solid swings to lead off with, but saturation and sequelitis really sank in hard, especially once many imitators hit the scene, such as the many smart device-related games. So where does the genre go from here? Well, I'm just gonna say it now, not with Lightseekers and not with Starlink. I gotta be honest, the big standout element of Lightseekers is by far its card game. Its Toys to Life component is a bit limp when compared to its predecessors, and Ubisoft's Starlink is going to launch in the middle of the dead zone created by the genre's collapse. It's not a pretty future for Toys to Life right now, and I don't even know if some time spent on the back burner could bring it back the way it's been used up. I mean, Guitar Hero and Rock Band couldn't make a comeback, so this might be the last we see of game-connected toys for a while unless something really creative arrives that isn't just connect the figure and that's who you play as in the game. Like many other big things, Toys to Life suffered a similar fate of poor imitations and increasingly desperate money-grasping techniques by the larger games, particularly with Skylanders and how they finally added loot crates. I actually held up Skylanders as a paragon for a long time due to how its microtransaction system at least gave you a physical item that you could display and carry forward to sequel games, though I will admit it did eventually fill my house with a huge pile of them. The addition of loot boxes, including literal physical ones, was frankly the moment that the series truly broke my heart. I mean, it had been treating me wrong since Swap Force, but I think the microtransactions were the final straw. And nobody really did much to innovate on the original idea. Even though Disney Infinity went with an open world approach complete with what were essentially separate games and a level creator, it was still bound to the Skylander system of placing a character on a platform who fought stuff and leveled up. Even those that parlayed the portal in favor of a wireless connection did the same thing. It got really old. If anything Toys to Life is to return in the future, I hope we see something that offers a new experience. Maybe something that allows more real-time strategy by moving the figures, or that strings together multiple figures into a unique experience. Any new Toys to Life entry that hopes to make it is really going to have to care more about interesting gameplay rather than a gimmick set on forcing more toy purchases, which, considering the cynical nature of this industry, will probably never happen. But to be fair, it's probably okay to move on. Toys to Life was certainly fun while it lasted. When it was good, it was really good. And thanks to the crash, it's easier to give the games a try than ever. You can buy the games brand new for pocket change and get the figures by the bushel. If you haven't tried out any of the Toys to Life games, then Spyro's Adventure, Giants, Trap Team, and Disney Infinity 1.0 are all still great games that represent the best the genre has to offer. So that's Toys to Life. It's not technically extinct, but yeah, it's pretty much over. Adieu, you little technological marvel. Until the next great idea comes along. But until that next great idea comes along, this is the fate of Toys to Life, and this is Kodak signing off.